Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge the allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We do ask at this time that everyone please silence their phones. Good evening and welcome to the 2022 School Board Candidate Forum. On behalf of myself, Ms. Corey Likens, and Mr. Phil Williams and our students, we would like to thank everyone for being here this evening. This School Board Candidate Forum was a collaborative effort between the United States Government class and the K.I.S.S TV classes. This is the first time something like this has taken place, so be graceful. Students in these classes designed, promoted, organized, and set up this entire forum. These students contacted candidates, constructed questions, and generated promos to advertise the event. Students, as you will see, are also directing and producing this event and will be handling all dialogue. We would like to thank our current school board, superintendent, and administrators for supporting this educational opportunity and fact-finding the legalities of hosting this forum. Lastly, we want to thank you, candidates, for being a part of this evening. In doing so, you have given our students at Union City a very unique opportunity to be directly involved in the election process. Without further ado, I would like to turn it over to the students.
Thank you, Mrs. Black. Good evening. As students at Union City, we take our education very seriously and those making decisions that will affect it and our future. When given the task of creating questions for the forum, we wanted to be sure to bring to light issues that not only the public will want to know, but also what students like ourselves want to know. You have been placed in your seat based on the area that you are seeking election. Mr. Thornburg and Mr. Piccini for the Wayne Township seat, Mrs. Osborne, Mr. Jimenez, and Mr. Dubinsky for the at-large seat. Lastly, Mr. Wasson and Mrs. Welch for the Jackson Township seat. Candidates, before we proceed, we would like to lay out the structure of this forum. We will be asking a series of 7 questions. Each round will consist of 1 question and an opportunity for all candidates to respond to that question. You will be given 2 minutes to provide your response. The 2-minute timer will be kept on the screen that is visible to you. At the end of the 2 minutes, we will move on to the next candidate and their response. We will begin each round of questioning with a new candidate. After the question is read and it can be seen on the TV mounted on the wall, all questions will be read in Spanish and then English. There will also be a Spanish version of this forum uploaded onto the K.I.S.S TV YouTube channel within the next few days. Are there any questions before we begin? We will now begin the candidate forum.
We will begin with Mr. Thornburg for our first question and then move down the line. ¿Por qué te presentas a la Junta Escolar? ¿Cuál es tu inspiración?
Mr. Thornburg, why are you running for school board and what is your inspiration?
I have felt for a while that I needed to get involved with my kids' education, and this felt like a good time to do it. My kids are both sophomores in high school. I love helping kids, educating kids. I've been a volunteer with the 4-H and FFA programs for most of my adult life. It's just something that I have been felt called to do.
Would that be everything?
That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Thornburg. Mr. Piccini, your response, please.
As a current
I'm sorry about that.
As a current school board member, I've gained a respect of the job, and I realize that a lot of my decisions affect students and the community and the school. And being a person that's lived in Union City my whole life, I've served the community, it seems like forever. And the role of a school board member to make these decisions to help every student it's very honorable to have. And I also think that my goal is to provide the safest and best educational value for every student at Randolph Eastern.
Would that be everything,
That's
Mr.
it.
Fratini? Thank you. Mrs. Osborne?
Hi, I'm Beverly Osborne, and I am a current school board member. And one thing over this almost 4 years, I have gained so much respect for what it takes to run a school, from the administration to the teachers to the staff to the students being in a school. You know, we continuously strive to, like Tim said, have a safe environment, give a quality education, and sometimes that's not easy. Sometimes that's very challenging for all. I hope that, you know, we can continue to, sorry, Mr. Fly. I hope that, you know, we can continue to lead how we have been. We have made great strides as a school, and I just hope that, you know, these next years we can continue on this, and I hope I can be a part of it.
You can go ahead, Mr. Jimenez.
All right, so hi everyone, Jesus Jimenez. And first thing I'd like to say is if a couple of years ago someone would have told me that I was running for a seat like this, I would have laughed, because politics, sometimes they seem pretty scary or divisive. But I've learned as I reflect on my life that, you know, that one thing that something told me when I was in college was just because something doesn't affect you personally doesn't mean it's not an issue. And as I've reflected on where I am in life, I've come to learn that people have believed in me and supported me and helped me get to where I am by seeing potential in me that I didn't see in myself. And I think that there's a need here for some diverse thought and some newer representation. My daughter just started preschool here in Union City, and I want her to have a rich experience here, same as I do for all the kids. I mean, I come from a big city. I was born and raised in Chicago, where we had all sorts of opportunity to learn about things from all over the world, see both sides of things. And I think that this would provide me an opportunity to make a difference, to inspire others, and to have a voice in those who don't necessarily always have a voice. So I think, I think this would be a great opportunity to, to look toward the future.
Thank you, Mr. Jimenez. Mr. Wasson?
Hello, I'm Jerry Wasson, and the reason why I feel like I need to get involved at this time, I'm 67 years old, and it seems like a crazy thing for an old man like me to try to do, but I've got grandchildren in this school system. I've been a farmer and for 50 years in this community, and I think I can bring a lot of different choices to the table here. I've been mentoring young men on my farm. Jeremy Welch sitting back there was one of my first. I don't know if you know Squeak Young, Gene Young. He was my first. Jeremy and Darren Hinesley were my second. I think I've had a total of about 10 young men that's come through my farming operation. We've expanded. I've got my son involved. I've got my son-in-law involved, and I just feel like, and we're all about family, and I just feel like this can be a family affair, this running help with this school system. And I think we need to get the families involved out here, especially the farm families. About 80% of the funding that comes in the school comes from rural, comes from the farmland. And I think in the past we haven't had a lot of representation because basically we've been asleep at the wheel. And I think it's time that the farmers in the community get involved, that I see a big opportunity. It's hard to find good help anymore, and to try to mentor some of these young people that want to get involved in agriculture, and the way I understand, there's going to be possibly an ag shop possibly coming on board, which I think would be a fantastic idea.
Hello, I'm Leanna Welch. I graduated from Union City in 2007. I have 4 kids that currently attend here, grades 10 through K, so they're across the entire board. And I just feel like I need to be more involved in their lives and in the school, and I have relationships with their teachers, the office workers, the students that are their friends, and the family. I even wrote down not to cry. I just want to be a part of all the kids that come to Union City's future. And if that means be on the board and help make decisions for them, then that's where I want to be.
Thank you, Mrs. Welch. This will be the end of round 1.
We will begin this question with Mr. Puccini, working through the line and end with Mr. Thornburg. Nuestro mundo ha cambiado y sigue cambiando. Hay amenazas antiguas y nuevas a las que las escuelas se enfrentan cada año. ¿Qué medidas está dispuesto a tomar para proteger a los estudiantes contra las amenazas, incluyendo, pero no limitado, a ALIS, COVID, monkeypox, etc.?
Mr. Puccini, our world has and continues to change. There are old and new threats that schools are facing each year. What measures are you willing to take to protect students against the threats, including, but not limited to, ALIS, COVID, monkeypox, etc.?
Like I said, safety is my #1 concern at this school. Being on a school board and being able to do something that would help make our administration, our teachers, our staff, and students safer, and we don't do it, that's not a good thing. And in the last 4 years, our school board, along with Mr. Black and our administration, has went above and beyond on things that we have to make this school safe. From the new camera systems that we have, the new PA systems that go school-wide, the ID tags that all teachers are going to be having. That one right there is one of the biggest ones I feel that's helping this school, is because these tags can be punched at any time, and immediately it will dispatch fire and EMS or the police department. And it's an awesome thing. We got to remember that the last school shooting in Texas, the principal of that school was leaning out the window to try to get a cell signal. So I feel safety is utmost, and the collaboration we have with the city on any projects that we ask for help, they're very, very willing to come in and help. That's why we got a new road out back from Diebold to clear up here to the bus barn, and new doors for the high school are coming. The doors, a lot of the doors that's there is the doors when I was here in 1977. So things are better, and the way our communities are around, it's just a matter of time.
Would that conclude your answer?
That does.
All right, thank you. Mrs. Osborne, your answer, please.
One thing I have to, it just shows you how much society's changed. I graduated from here in '86, so growing up, our standard practice was a fire drill and a tornado drill. Now, unfortunately, we have to include active shooter drills. That's not something any of us ever thought that would be included. Tim's right, we have done, the school, the administration, through some grants, some of this, we have been able to update our PA system. That includes, not only here in the building, but outside of the athletic fields also. We are updating the new doors. Like you said, they've been around since '60s.
We brought our own school police officer, or
police department within that will continue to work with the city, county, and state. And, with that, we make sure that Mr. Bradbury has the ability to go to conferences, meet other resource officers, go and look at other schools and see what they do. We just have to continue expanding on the safety and the awareness for not just, our administration, but our teachers, our staff, and our students. We've tried to work with, we have the Sandy Hook Promise that has been, I believe there's posters in the school for the students to look at. So I think what we do, we have to just look at, it may not fit for what other schools are doing, we have to figure out what's going to do it for us. And I didn't get to the COVID, but continuing what we're doing, being very conscientious on cleaning, if somebody's sick, wearing the proper equipment, PPE equipment and everything is very major to do.
Thank you. Mr. Jimenez, your response, please.
When talking about student safety, the first thing that comes to mind, unfortunately, is the biggest tragedy that we can think of is, some of you have already talked about that, the school shootings. And I know we say this a lot, and we can't overstate the fact that our children's safety should be the number one concern of our students. And I think we took a huge step at the last board meeting by approving, I think it's Centegix, the security system, mobile-based. I know some people said this, I hope it is a waste of money, I hope we never have to use it. But I think that school safety you need to find the root of the problem, right? I think we need to continue to focus on mental health, that there's been mental health issues our whole lives, but we're just now starting to understand them. So I think we need to establish a school that is inclusive, where everyone feels welcome, where no one is feeling ostracized, where we're doing what we can to make sure that students who have some sort of issues or feeling left out have someone that they can trust, someone that can go to. And I also, even though that's focused on the school shooting aspect, I think school safety encompasses everyday lives, right? So I think it starts with putting every person that is around our students should be someone that has the best interest of the students at heart. So I know I work at the church here in town, and every one of our volunteers has to take it's called a safe and sacred training, where you can't teach a class until you've passed certain background tests and background checks and courses. So I think it starts with seeing safety in every aspect of life. So as far as COVID, I think we've been doing e-learning. I worked from home for a year and a half on Zoom, so there's things we can do.
Thank you, Mr. Jimenez. Mr. Watson?
Never being on the board before and being involved in the school safety, I think what I've seen and what I've heard, that our school's already doing a very good job of school safety. I don't know if we could add retired police officers or anybody that's been in service of that sort could possibly even come in and roam the halls. And during the day, I don't think that would be something that would be out of line or out of the question, but maybe that's even being done some, I don't know, because being new, I think what our school's already doing is very well fitting the bill for what we need for our school, and I don't think I would come in and change a thing. I think it's doing what it's designed to do.
Will that conclude your response?
Yes.
All right. Mrs. Welch, your response, please.
Like Jerry said, we are doing a lot of good things with the school. I've never served on the board either, obviously, but we have, the whole school's on soft lockdown. You can get in the first set of doors. An office worker has to buzz you in order to even access anywhere in the building, or the teachers have like little card things that scan at the doors, and that's the only way they can get in. I remember when I was in school, all the doors were unlocked, and you snuck outdoors, and it was silly. But we have Officer Bradbury. He has an office at the high school. So he's always available. Like Pooch said, a button gets everybody here that needs to be here. I didn't know about all the old doors and stuff, though. That's crazy. But I like the new texting app that I think we got notified about a week or so ago. And it's called Say Something Anonymous Reporting System. And it's for and kids now, they're so tuned into electronics and their phones and the computers, and they don't feel comfortable going up to somebody and telling them if they see something wrong. So I love this app. And so my kid, if he sees something goofy going on or threatening or self-harm from somebody else, he can shoot a little text and somebody can look into it and nobody ever has to know it's him, because I know what that feels like, having all eyes on you and being a tattletale, and nobody wants that. And if we don't feel like our kids are safe at school, why would we send them? So we have to make sure that our kids are the safest they can possibly be here.
Thank you. Mr. Thornburg, your response, please.
Well, I think, a lot of what everybody said is true. I mean, school safety is of utmost importance. Our children are our future. If we don't protect them, then we don't have a future. There's many things that we have to think about today that we didn't have to think about when most of us were in school. They weren't things that you needed to deal with, keeping the doors locked. But we need to continue, I think, to be more proactive, educating the staff on things to look for with mental problems and things like that, and making people more aware that when a locked door is locked, it needs to stay shut, not propping them open during certain times of the day. Those lets threats in. We have some unique challenges to face with the Vision Corner uptown. How are we going to get kids back and forth and keep those areas secure? And that fly is just following whoever's talking, isn't it? And the same with the ag shop. You're crossing a driveway, you've got 2 locked doors. How are we going to get them kids back and forth in a way that's going to make and keep everybody safe and secure? And there's just things we need to continue to work on and continue to talk about and work through ways. And we have a great group of people here who, when we pull our minds together, we can get lots of good things done.
Will that conclude your response? Thank you, Mr. Thornburg. This will now be the end of round 2.
For this question, we will begin with Mrs. Osborne. Por favor, comparta alguna de sus experiencias y pensamientos sobre la educación pública.
Mrs. Osborne, please share some of your experiences and thoughts on public education.
Public education. Anybody that can say that they have their hand and their pulse on the public education, I commend you. It's not a business. In my mind, it is a business because we're here to educate the children. But there's so many levels to public education, to the teachers' requirements, their curriculum, how they have to teach that curriculum, to the pathways of the students, on what classes you can take to meet this graduation requirement. And those change every couple of years. Keeping up with those and keeping on track those students to making sure you're going to graduate with what you need, that's very time consuming. It's a fluid, and it's not just in the high school levels, it's down at the kindergarten through 6th grade also. We've stated we're a very diversified school with our demographics and everything, and making sure that you have the right people and enough people in classrooms teaching these students. That's what it's all about. And some days that's hard. That's very hard. And it's just it's like I said, it's just a fluid thing, and making sure that you're meeting all the requirements for all 960 students. That poses a challenge daily. So it's just like I said, it's not a business, but it is a business, and it's to educate you guys and it takes a lot to make that happen.
Does this conclude your response? Thank you. Mr. Jimenez, your response, please.
Wow, this is a pretty broad question that I can take all sorts of places. But I think public education, it has, like Ms. Osborne mentioned, it has the requirements from the state, the expectations from our teachers, and our kids will be in school for a third of the day, most of the year. It's where they become who they will be in life. And I think the great thing about education is that you learn a little bit of everything, and you can go on and grow up and decide what it is you want to do. And I think that in public education, you learn a little bit of history, math, you learn how to navigate your way through life, but it's important to know that you are not defined by your grades, you are not defined by your test scores. And I know we've said this over and over again, that students might test pretty low on the state standardized test, but they go on and become very successful adults in whatever they choose. I think it's an ever-evolving thing. Public education is, we're using computers now. That when I was in school, I got my first computer when I was in high school, and we have kids working from their phones anymore, right? We have it's evolving, and I think we need to embrace the changes that we have, whether that is the digital revolution that I don't know if we realize this. We've lived through a digital revolution where we're having e-learning online, and kids are learning how to have classes digitally. I think as our demographics change, we also can adjust our curriculum to the changing diversity or whatever else is going on in the world. Obviously, the history, we're not going to what we learned 20 years ago. We're going to learn modern and local history. So.
Does this conclude your response?
Yeah, I'm out of time.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Wasson, your response, please.
Yes, we definitely need the public school system. My children were schooled in Christian school at our church, and our church is also involved in providing homeschool material. So I think I've got a perspective that a lot of people may not have. I know a lot of things that work, and I know a lot of things that don't work as far as education. Too many times we leave all the education just up to the experts, where a lot of times mom and dad and people in the community can educate children also. I feel like I educate children at my farm all the time in different tasks. And we had the meeting over at Winchester here last year, and all we heard was so much bickering and fighting going on between the teachers and the congressmen. And I made a comment. I said, if we don't get this stuff straightened out with the teachers and try to get some floor in what we're doing, we're going to drive these kids and their families right out of it. If charter schools come in, what if and homeschooling? Like I said, our bookstore is overwhelmed. We can't keep up. We can't supply enough material, have enough help, because people are exiting the public school. I'd like to see that change. I mean, not that I see it change, but I think I can help in areas that maybe it's not being addressed. And I think I can just bring a perspective to the board that maybe we need to look at some alternatives on how we can educate. Thinking everybody, when I went to school, everybody had to go to college. When you got done, everybody went to college. Well, I don't think that fits the bill. I mean, the way it costs to go to college anymore, we need to get apprenticeships going on. We need to get farmers involved, getting kids out in the field, businesses involved.
Thank you, Mr. Wasson. Mrs. Welch, your response, please.
So my experiences through public school just keep going. Ever since I was in school, I had my children young, and then they started school. And like I said, I've got sophomore to kindergartners in our school right now. And I did choose during that first year of COVID to keep the kids home, and we did online school. And the only thing I can say about the digital learning through Union City and through at home is the parents are so hands-on with that. But with that being said, the teachers are more involved with the parents as well. Excuse me. And that takes a totally special kind of teacher to be able to handle all the online, because you're not face to face. It's so hard. And I struggled with the kids. That's why they're back in school. But the e-learning days are a struggle. But at the same time, when they go into a job, they're going to be plugged into a computer because so many things are. So they need to get acquainted with that. And it's very important. So I like that our school has kept up with that, and that my kids did get that year experience of complete online. And then also, like when I was in school, it's not the same school. The school right now is not the same as it was when I was in school. Like Bev said, the requirements are different. Everything's different. It's not the same school my mom went to. It is constantly changing, and I feel like Union City does a great job at keeping up with that change. And so if I'm on the board, I want to just dive right in and keep up with them.
Does that conclude your response? Thank you, Mrs. Welch. Mr. Thornburg, your response, please.
You know, I graduated from this school in 1998. I had big aspirations to go to Purdue and become an agricultural engineer. I got to Purdue and found out the math that I had just didn't cut what they were doing up there. We didn't have the same level. I think things have changed since then. We find ways to improve our programs, to improve our curriculum, and that's part of what the public education system is here to do. We're taking the input from the public. The public is helping fund the education, and we need to change our curriculum and change how we do things to better meet the needs of our students. Now, I ended up changing my major and did very well after that, so I probably was just in the wrong thing at the time. And, you know, every student's going to go through things like that. And we need to help reassure our students that, you know, you are going to face tough things, but as long as we teach them a good foundation of how to work and how to overcome these problems, they will thrive very well. And I think a public education, you're open to a lot more diversity than other settings, and that is a very good thing for our children to experience. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Thornburg. Your response, Mr. Puccini?
Well, I just want to talk about public education as it pertains to myself at Randolph Eastern in Union City. And first of all, probably I would say 3 or 4 times a month, my wife and I teach CPR classes, and we'll get done with that, and our throats are sore, and we're extremely tired, and I can't imagine what these teachers go through. And are they underpaid? Yes, they are. From top to bottom, I feel they're underpaid. And another thing, Union City is right at 70% free and reduced lunches. And if you would come to the school early and watch some of the little kids that walk to our school, you can just tell that they're very young and they're getting themselves up. So the best thing for them is to be in school and to be in our school. And with the programs that we've generated through all the grant money that we're getting and the collaboration with the city, Union City is going to be the school that other county schools and other East Central Indiana schools use a measuring stick of. We got great things going on here. We're diverse, and we're trying to make every student be able to have a successful high school, junior high career and get out in the workforce. Vision Corner is going to be second to none. This thing's going to be so great. We got IU East coming to teach classes. We got Ivy Tech. We got a lot of courses. Like Mr. Thornburg said, we got places we can do and teach these kids that they can get right out in the workforce. So I think Union City is on the way up. And I think the main thing as a school board member that I need to do is continue to listen to the teachers and the staff and do everything in my power to give them the tools they need.
Thank you, Mr. Puccini. This is now the end of round 3.
Mr. Jimenez, we will be starting with you for this round of questions. Mr. Jiménez, si usted es elegido para este puesto, trabajará con otras personas en el consejo también en el edificio. ¿Por qué cree que es adecuado para este puesto? If elected to this position, you will be working with other individuals on the board as well as in the building. Why do you feel that you are a good fit for this position?
So, as I said a little earlier, I haven't always been a fan of politics or discussion with people that might not agree with me. But one thing that I've learned when I got to college was that there are so many different opinions out there, people who might not always see eye to eye with what we have at heart. But I think that, I went from a Catholic school in Chicago to a liberal arts college at Earlham College. And, in a Catholic school, everyone learns things a certain way, right? And then we went out into the world, and when I got to a college, I met people from all over the world, and I would sometimes just say statements about stuff that I believed. And one time someone challenged me on that, and we sat down and we had a conversation. It wasn't a rude, like, hey, you're wrong, this is how we do things. It was like, why do you feel that way? And we had a very powerful discussion about two very controversial extremes. I won't say what the topic was, but we sat down and we had a great conversation where at the end of the day, we realized, we aren't all that different. At the end of the day, we all want to do what's right. So I think that working together with people on the board, I would have an open heart and open mind and try to understand everyone's point of view before making a decision. Aside from that, again, as I mentioned earlier, I've had a lot of great opportunities, and I know what it takes. I know that things aren't always going to be easy for our students to achieve, but we need to demonstrate and instill in them the confidence that it's going to take work and it's not going to be easy, but it's worth it. It'll be worth it. You might not see that now, but just keep on keeping on, and you'll get there. So follow your dreams.
Thank you, Mr. Jimenez. Mr. Watson, your response, please.
As a possible school board member, I think you want diversity on the school board. You don't want everybody thinking in the same line. Each board member will have their strong points or strong areas that can be worked upon. I'm the type that it doesn't have to be my idea to be a good idea and to make it better. Once on a church, I seen it. It doesn't matter. There's no limit to what a man can do if he doesn't care who gets the credit. And I think that's a very important thing. It doesn't have to be one particular idea, but if it's a good idea, I think everybody should get behind it. And I think that would make a very healthy board, that if you have diversity of thought, we need to have a board that reaches all the township, all the people. Everybody needs to be represented. It's not about money, but as a farmer, we have this thing, it's called ROI, it's return on investment. If we're going to spend, if the school system's going to spend money, we need to make sure that money gives us a return with our students. When I say investment, our students are our investment. And if we're going to spend money, let's make sure that's going to raise test scores. Let's make sure that's going to help these students get jobs and be prepared to go out in this world and to face the different challenges they have, because there's all different things going on, all different ways that you can meet somebody's needs. And a diverse board can do that. If the board's all thinking in one line, you don't ever get any discussion, don't ever get any feedback.
Thank you, Mr. Watson. Mrs. Welch, your response, please.
I think I would be a good board member because I'm not afraid to speak what I think. I will never side with somebody just because they told me to. I want to collect any and all data and form my own opinion about anything. And I feel like you have to be a pretty strong person to be on the board. You have to have thick skin, even though I cried earlier. But I feel like I can do all those things and more. If I become a board member, I will state my opinions and I will stand by them, and I will not be swayed in any other direction than my own.
Does that conclude your response? Thank you, Mrs. Welch. Mr. Thornburg, your response, please.
You know, I have served on various boards through my adult life, and you come across situations that can be tough and can get heated, and sometimes you just got to sit back and listen to people vent. You know, we can't get anywhere if we don't have discussions and talk. We can have differing opinions and still get along. We can still be civil with one another. And that's something I think I bring. I try to let things roll off of me and not bug me to blow up. I think I've been on 4-H Inc. with the Randolph County Fairgrounds for several years now, and we learn to do things with limited resources. So I think that gives me insight into how to get things done in different ways that sometimes people don't think about. We try to do things to maximize the most out of our spending. Being a part of that organization has really given me that insight on how to do that. So I think that's something that I can bring to the school board.
Does that conclude your response? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Thornburg. Mr. Puccini, your response, please.
Well, I think being an incumbent school board member, I've gained a lot of experience in the 4 years. And I also feel that after working at Randolph Eastern for 21 years here, that I know the workings from the ground up. And I've worked for some quality superintendents and not so quality superintendents. And I feel that that experience is really good for the position. But I think the main position that I have is I'm willing to go out and talk to teachers. You know, we had a building project come along and it just went south real quick. But during that project, I would go to the Northside teachers and ask them, what do you think you need? Not something that just somebody wrote on paper. What's your needs to make your job better and to help educate your students? And I would go to the middle school and I'd go to the high school. And I feel that's what you need to do. When you're in a position to make a decision that affects your whole community, you got to put in some time. And you got to go to the city leaders and talk to them. But most of all, what I feel is my best position is I am 100% for the principals, take care of your buildings. The teachers, the superintendent, the school board needs at times just to get out of the way and let it work, let the process work. That's it.
Does that conclude your response?
It does.
Alrighty. Thank you, Mr. Puccini. Mrs. Osborne, your response, please.
Unlike Mr. Thornburg, this is my first time actually being on a board. Now, I have been in a lot of programs and projects where we were part of a group, discussions. I think what was said earlier about a diversified board, you know, there's 5 of us on a board. We all bring something different to the table. We have a current, farmer business. We have a retired teacher. We have a retired employee, or I guess not really retired, but, like I said, been in the school system. I kind of bring to the table a little bit more of a manufacturing business vision or view of things. One of the things that I've probably, I don't want to say it's my thing, but I like to ask questions. Why? I don't understand this. I grew up, my dad always told me that there's no such thing as a dumb question. There may be a dumb answer. Ask your questions. If you don't ask them, you're never going to, learn. So I just believe, as a board, and we have to ask these questions. We all have to look. We have to sit and we have to have discussions. Some of those discussions, they're not fun, but at the end of the day, at the end of the time when we leave, we're still friends. We still have one goal in mind, and that is the students. I think anybody currently on the board or anybody sitting here as a potential candidate, we all have the one goal in mind, and that is what's best for the students. How we look at it, how we arrive at some of our decisions. You know, it may not be what he believes or how he feels, but that's part of being diversified, and you know, you have to stand for what you believe and say it.
Alrighty. Thank you, Mrs. Osborne. This is the end of round 4.
Okay, so due to the fact that we have a candidate who is unavailable to be here tonight, this question will be answered in random order by drawing names. Mrs. Osborne will start this round. Mrs. Osborne, en Union City, casi el 40% de nuestra población estudiante es de Anita, España. Por favor, hable de cómo planea acomodar ese gran y creciente número de estudiantes diversos. At Union City, nearly 40% of our student population is of Hispanic ethnicity. Please talk about how you plan to accommodate this large and growing number of diverse students.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody happened to catch the superintendent last Friday, that K.I.S.S. I'll tell you what, if you haven't watched that, you really need to sit down, take your time, not just listen to what Superintendent Black had to say, you need to listen to all the county superintendents. It was very informative. And what Superintendent Black pointed out is we are a very unique school. We, there's really nobody, surround us closely, and probably not within the state. We do have a large EL population. That is a major challenge for not only our teachers, but for the students themselves. You know, one thing that we've talked about that we really need to, and that we're working on it, we need to make sure that our teachers have the ability that they can learn the Spanish language. We wanted to make sure that we need to get more aides to help with our teachers. We have a barrier that we have to overcome, and it's not something that's just going to happen within the next 6 months. It's going to take a couple years. We just got to make sure that we have a good foundation now, so we got to continue on that foundation and build on that. Get the teachers, give them the opportunity to become bilingual. Have the paraprofessionals here. Our bus drivers, we need to make sure that there's communication, and they have, everybody, the students, the teachers have the tools that they need to academically teach those children.
Mr. Bettini, your response, please.
I just think what we're doing right now with the ESL learning and a lot of the teachers is starting to learn Spanish, that we're going the correct way. I think the 40% of students we have, that is a great asset to Union City in general. And to lead back to Vision Corner, there's going to be classes up there for young adults to be able to speak English to help them get out in the workforce, which is real big. And I don't think anybody in this Randolph Eastern treats it like it's a hardship or a hindrance. It's something good for our community. It's working out well, and I think we just continue to get our programs better, to continue to stay with the programs that we got and just make them better, so that these young kids get the exact same chance as anybody else. And you know, when they walk through that graduation line and you get to shake their hand, it's a great feeling. And I think that if we continue to work on things, Aaron, Mr. Black, he's always coming up with ideas and throwing them at us, and we take some of them, and others we talk about and go on, and I think that's what's important for our whole city.
Thank you, Mr. Bettini. Mr. Jimenez, your response, please.
So, one thing that growing up in Chicago, I didn't realize how diverse what diversity was until I left that, right? And I got to college where it wasn't as diverse. And, you know, one thing growing up, I'm Hispanic, but growing up, my parents spoke mainly Spanish. My mom never spoke English. And I would go out to school and people would bully me and say, this is America, we speak English. And, you know, we do, right? But when I got to college, I had people from all over the United States begging me to help them learn Spanish because they wanted to open more doors for themselves, to go out in the world and find jobs internationally. And just for those who want to be bilingual, I think we should embrace that, and I think we should empower those who want to learn both languages. Of course, you know, I do think we should do what we can to make sure that everyone learns English, because, you know, obviously that's important. But one thing that I've done in my time at the church too is, you know, a lot of people would show up late or not take their kids to religious education, and simply explaining and having the people, the parents buy into how important thing was, and communicating in their language, having meetings with them and having someone who they could, you know, they could see themselves in, that really made a lot of difference. We've seen a lot of people come back and start to really see the importance in this. You know, a lot of people who might come from a different country might not see the power or the potential that a kid can have by going to school. And I think if we embrace this opportunity, we can be a leader in East Central Indiana. I really do believe that, because we do have something that other people don't. And, you know, if people feel welcome here, they'll go out in the world, have some successful jobs, and they'll come back to Union City and they'll want to build here what they learn, because this is their home. So.
Thank you, Mr. Jimenez. Mrs. Welch, your response, please.
With how diverse our school is, it is so important that we do cater to the 40% that are Hispanic, because without them, we would be having an entirely different conversation on whether this school should be open or not. And so with that being said, and just because all the Hispanics, the 40% that they are, a lot of them can speak English, but 20% of our population at our school can't. They have to have a special teacher and special classes and translators, and there are 185 students at our school that there is a language barrier. And so they're sitting in a classroom with a teacher who speaks English, and they can't communicate. So we have 3 teachers at Union City and 5 aides, so 8 staff members that are dedicated to these kids that can't speak English. And I would like to see those numbers of the teachers and the staff members grow and reach more of the children, because if you remember when you were in college, guys, if you took college lectures, you sat in a room of hundreds of people with one teacher and you didn't learn anything in that lecture hall. Can you imagine these little kids that can't communicate with us, how they feel in a classroom with one teacher to 60 kids? I mean, that's the statistics of it. There's not 60 kids sitting in a classroom, but that's the point. We don't have the numbers for these kids that we do have, and we need the kids to be open. So, yeah.
Thank you, Mrs. Welch. Mr. Watson, your response, please.
Yes, I was able to attend that meeting last week with all the superintendents, and I was very impressed with the way Mr. Black presented our school system here and what he had to say. He had a lot of good things. A lot of good things were going on. A lot of good things were happening, but there's no doubt that he's the only one in the room that is facing the challenge that this school system is facing. We are compensated from the state for that. If we've got 300, say we have 300 students, then our school system is allowed to take on another extra $300,000 to combat this challenge. And I'd just like to make sure, I would hope to think that that $300,000 is being spent directly toward that issue, that we could hire more. I would like to see us train our own teachers, offer them a way to up their pay if they can learn to speak English or take English and go into Spanish and teach Spanish, then there would be a special way we can compensate for that. I think that would be a way to, instead of trying to hire in teachers, to grow our own teachers. And I think that would be a very good way to combat that. And we've got to remember, out of these 305 students we have, all their parents head to the east to work. They're all working in livestock areas, most of them livestock farms. I think we ought to promote heavily for these children to get involved in agriculture, because that's why they're here. They're here to work. They come up here to work, and most of them are working in Ohio, most of them.
Thank you, Mr. Watson. Mr. Thornburg, your response, please.
Well, I think as this population grows and the needs of that population change, we're going to have to change the focus of where we spend the money. We're going to have to continue to fund adding aides and teachers to help accommodate the students that are here. It's not going to be, we're going to have to be creative in how we do it. We'll have to find ways to do it. And then I would like to also, I know the city's working on with part of Vision Corner, offering some classes for parents and adults to learn English upstairs, or learn English there as well. And I think if we can help try to include the families more and get the whole families on that education, it's going to be a great asset to the community, and it's just going to help. It's going to help everything move along together. I guess I must be the one here that must not have had very good foresight when I was in high school, because back when I was in school, you could choose Spanish or French. And I took a year of French, so I evidently wasn't very smart down that avenue.
Is all for your response? Thank you, Mr. Thornburg. This is the end of round 5. This round of questioning will begin with Mr. Watson. Como miembro del Consejo Escolar, creemos que es importante que entiendan la visión de nuestra corporación. Por favor, mencione sus prioridades para la escuela y cómo las abordaría.
Mr. Watson, as a school board member, we believe it is important that you understand the vision of our corporation. Please mention your priorities for the school and how you would address them.
Well, I think as being a new member, I mean, this is all new to me, but I see my vision would be that we could, number one, address the diverse population we have and try to get them children involved in agriculture, because that's basically what they're being involved with now. And to build our agriculture department up in our school, there's a lot of businesses that would like to get involved in that, I believe, if they could just had the opportunity to. So I see that as one of the visions, and I just think that as a board member, as a board, that we can all come up with different ideas that we can venture out into, and not just one person, but if someone has a good idea, a vision that we can go to, we all should pile on and make that happen. That's what I do a lot of. I see a challenge to me, and I want to combat that challenge. I want to go after it and make sure I can make it happen, make it work out.
Does this conclude your response? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Watson. Mr. Welch, your response, please. Or Mrs. Welch, I apologize.
It's okay, you're forgiven. As a school board member, I would put the kids and the staff first, always, because without the kids, there are no staff, and without the staff and the kids, there is no school. So with that, you have to make every decision based on what you have. And my goals would be to grow, continue to grow, because that's what we've done. We've evolved and continue to evolve in the way the world evolves. And I would like nothing more than this school to be where people want to come. The city's building the new houses out off Plum Street. That's going to bring more people, new people, hopefully. And hopefully they have families and want to enroll their kids here. I want to have a school that screams, hey, we're here for the kids. This is the best place for them. And if that means revamping something and putting in new this or that to cater to people, then I'm for it. Let's do it.
Thank you, Mrs. Welch. Mr. Thornburg, your response, please.
Well, I think if you go around our community these days, you can go into business after business that has help wanted signs and has good paying jobs that we just don't have people to fill. I would like to see the school, which I think we're already working on some, but work harder on working with a lot of these local businesses, maybe tailor some pathways that where, you know, you take the right classes, you learn the things that those employers need you to know when you walk out of school, and you can hit the ground running right into a job. With the expense of college today, college isn't going to be for everybody. And we do have good skilled jobs around that need to be filled. If you try to get a plumber around here right now, you're going to have to travel a ways to find one, because that's just something that's not around here. Electricians are hard to find, and Shockney Electric has help wanted on their sign almost all the time. I think if we work with these businesses, these employers, and help tailor things, it'll just make it easier for us to fill that need that we have for employees in this area. And maybe if we do that, we'll have more people will stay around our community and stay in our community instead of leaving and going to bigger towns and bigger communities. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Thornburg. Mr. Puccini, your response.
I had a few priorities when I first was fortunate enough to be on the school board, and as Bev knows, one of them was we needed a sign. Every school in the whole daggone place has a sign, and Union City didn't. We had to go put the letters up, and the board agreed that that's what we needed. At the time, Andy Stover, we hired him to be our grant writer, and he found ways for us to get the sign. Matter of fact, we got it through COVID's money, which was a great thing. My main priority is safety of the school. That's pretty obvious, just because of the field I'm in. And the other thing that I really wanted to work on, I wanted to get the non-certified people's pay up a little bit. Sometimes they're the ones that you don't see at all, from the bus drivers to the cooks to the aides to the maintenance and custodials. And our school board has done an excellent job to get their money up, help them out on their health insurance. Something else I wanted to do was I really wanted the best teachers that we could find. Well, to do that is you got to pay a little money. Education is expensive. It's not free. So over the 4 years, our school board has generated over $11,000 in raises for teachers. If you get a happy teacher, they're going to stay and they're going to work hard. What I really liked, and it just happened this last year, this summer, is we brought teachers on from other corporations. They quit their day job at that school they was at and decided to come to Union City. That, to me, that's setting the bar pretty high right there. And I just think that the other priority I would have is our grant writers have brought in so much money, and it's just been a blessing to our whole community. And we have a great...
Thank you, Mr. Puccini. Mrs. Osborne, your response.
Priorities for the school. One thing I think is staff retention. We have been very fortunate. That was one thing that was stated at that superintendent meeting, that we are fully staffed with teachers. Some of the other schools are not so lucky on that. We have to monitor that. We're going to have teachers here this coming year retiring. We've brought in quite a few new teachers. I guess trying to find out what the teachers, what they like about our school, making sure that they want to stay, making sure they have the opportunity to stay. And like Tim said, we've tried to do that with, making sure the pay scale is where it needs to be. So that's kind of critical. If you have a turnover in staff, that can be very detrimental to everybody. Vision Corner, that was something that I never would have even thought of, 5 years ago, 6 years ago. It has so much potential. It's going to give an opportunity for a lot of students that would never even have that. We'll have TP, we have the Apache, you'll have K.I.S.S there. That's something key. It gives you students the opportunity to see what it's kind of like in a business world, what it's in a communication. One thing that this town our city is very fortunate. We have businesses, but we also have agriculture. Getting our students out there, letting them have the opportunity to see those type of businesses, experience, work in them, see if it's something that they're interested in. You think of Workhorse and you think, oh, it's a manufacturer and you're going to build vans. There's a lot more to it than that. There's the alternative fuel, there's the drone side. There's so many depths in this city on different buildings. Letting those students have that hands-on experience.
Thank you, Mrs. Osborne. Mr. Jimenez, your response.
So I think that, there's so much potential here, and there's a long list of things that I think we could prioritize, but I think that we need to figure out what our strengths are and how we can empower our strengths. So if we have a diverse population, let's find ways to empower those students to go out and build new opportunities for themselves. I've seen a lot of things on social media recently as well about adulting classes. So, a lot of people like to joke how, I learned the quadratic formula, but I never knew how to do my taxes, or I never knew how to, fill in the blank. And I think a local school in Dark County was doing something like an adulting class where they were helping kids, teaching them how to mow, teaching them shop class, cooking class. I think there's value to all those kinds of things. Ideally they learn them at home, but we can do a lot of that here. I also think that one thing that we should, again, it happened at religious education at my Catholic school church, but I think getting parents involved and bringing them back into the school and seeing what their kids are doing is a huge priority, because when they hear something here at school and then at home they hear something completely different, they're going to be confused. They're not going to figure out who to trust. But if the parents can come here and understand why this is important, then that's only going to make things better for everyone, right? And the parents are going to learn how to answer the tough questions that the kids have, and they're just going to trust it a little bit better. Another thing that I haven't talked about, I worked as a sports writer for years. I love sports. Sports changed my life, and I think that's a big important thing. I think I would definitely like to empower sports. So.
Thank you, Mr. Jimenez. This is the end of round 6.
Our final round of questions will begin with Mrs. Welch. Estar en el consejo escolar conlleva la responsabilidad de tomar decisiones que no siempre son favorables para todos. ¿Está usted dispuesto a hacer sacrificios personales para mejorar nuestras escuelas y estudiantes? Por favor, explique.
Mrs. Welch, being on the school board comes with a responsibility to make decisions that may not always be favorable to everyone. Are you willing to make personal sacrifices to better our schools and students? Please explain.
I feel like I'm going to be redundant with this answer, because like I stated, as I would be a good board member, because this is kind of in the same hand as that. And I would absolutely be willing to make the hard sacrificial decisions for the best of the school and the students. And you have to put your own feelings aside and other people's feelings aside to make these hard decisions for the kids and for the school system. You can't take any of it personal. If you do, you're just setting yourself up to have your heart broken. And so I guess you have to come in with a guarded heart of sorts, because not everybody is going to get along. And that's okay, because we can all still be civil with each other and be adults and understanding.
Is that the end of your response? Thank you, Mrs. Welch. Mr. Thornburg, your response, please.
Well, as I said earlier, I volunteered with 4-H and FFA programs for years. And with the building project last year coming up, the discussion came up of how dire need the ag shop was and how cluttered and unuseful it was. So I really hadn't been it since I had graduated school, and coming in and helping with a small engines FFA team after school, I take off work. I work on a farm, so we work long hours almost all year round. So I was getting here at school about 3:30 in the afternoon, and we'd start working, and I got back there, and yes, it was a mess back there. So this summer I talked to Mr. Black and I said, hey, if I get a group of people together, can we come in and clean it? He got me a dumpster, and that's what we did. We spent a couple hours of an afternoon. There was 5 or 6 of us. Wendy was there too. And we cleaned the ag shop and made it usable again. And those types of things that I like to do. I get involved, and I'm not afraid to get dirty. And if it takes some equipment, we'll bring some equipment to get it done. So that's all I have.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Thornburg. Mr. Puccini, your response, please.
Well, as a school board member, I'm here to tell you that the money you make compared to the hours you put in, it's not much. So you're making a personal sacrifice right there. And after coaching at Randolph Eastern for 12 years, and as some of you can understand, you don't make no money doing that either. You do it for the love of the game and the love of the kids. And that's why I'm on the school board, because I love my community. I feel the sacrifices that my wife and I have made are pretty much second to none. And a couple of the things that I am really, really proud of is the senior life skills that we do. I think that's a sacrifice from a lot of the people that put this on and help us do that. But it's something that Union City started and other schools now are trying to implement too. So that's a real good thing we do. And I think if you would just come to school a little early and see some of the little kids that's walking, that you would have no problem sacrificing whatever it takes to help our students in our school.
Thank you, Mr. Puccini. Mrs. Osborne, your response, please.
I think when you ask that question, I go back to Wendy. What they told you, it's just one meeting a month. It's not that much time. That's false. I'm not going to say the lie, but that's false. We communicate daily via text, via an email. Erin gives us updates on continuous, what's going on. Hey, can you be here for that? Or, hey, this is happening. You're right. It's not, you can't put the dollar for the time. Doesn't work out. The math just doesn't work out. But I don't want to call it a sacrifice. It's an enjoyment. Some days it's not the greatest thing, and there's issues, and you have discussions, you meet, you may agree, you don't agree, but it's definitely worth the time. You're not always the popular person, but that's okay. As long as you believe in what you do and what you say, that's all that matters.
Is that the end of your response? Thank you, Mrs. Osborne. Mr. Jimenez, your response, please.
So I didn't realize that my last question, I was going to have a perfect segue to this answer, because one of the best things that I learned in sports was that sometimes you have to make your personal sacrifices for the betterment of the team, right? So I want to play every inning in baseball or every quarter, every minute in basketball, but if there's someone else that is better suited to make this play or take this decision on the school board, then we're going to have to make some sacrifices. We're going to have to compromise. And as I said earlier, I had some difficult conversations with people, and I thought my way was right. And one of the best things I learned is that I don't know everything, so that's why I need to trust everyone else on the board and have an open mind. And we listen to each other, and at the end of the day, we might change our opinions. And if we don't change our opinions, we might at least see the point of view from someone else, and we'll have to make a compromise. And I think at the end of the day, the people that will be in these positions will be elected because we trust them to do their homework and make the best decision for the students, not for our own personal beliefs. And if the students show that what they want, it aligns with our decisions, we're going to vote for what's best for the students. So, it's one thing that I've learned in life. You got to compromise, pick your battles, and then, make the sacrifices for the students. It's not about me. It's about the kids, the teachers, and what's best for them. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Jimenez. Mr. Watson, your response, please.
Now, being on the board, it's hard for me to tell you what kind of personal sacrifices I'm going to have to make, but I can tell you the personal sacrifices that I've had made in my life's journey. Like I said, I've been farming for 50 years, and I chose, when my wife and I decided to have our children, I chose to have her stay at home and not return back to work and to raise the family. And it was been a lot easier just to send her back to the body company and have an extra paycheck coming back in. But I chose to make that sacrifice. We sacrificed all the time at home with our children, how to divvy things up and divide things up. And I do know how to sacrifice. And I think I can bring that same type of sacrifice to the school board, where I could, I'm busy. We farm 2,500 acres, 7,000 feeder pigs. I do a tiling business. We do custom manure hauling. We're busy all the time. And somebody said, well, how do you have time to do this? Well, I'm going to sacrifice. I'm going to leave early. Somebody else is going to take my place, because I think it's important for me to be involved in my grandchildren's schooling and this whole community. I just feel like God's called me to come in here, and I've got knowledge in plumbing, heating, wiring, field drainage, all kinds of aspects, that there's jobs out there in all of these areas, and I think I can bring that to the system, to the students. And for me to come in here to be on the board would be a sacrifice, and I'm willing to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Watson. This concludes our questioning rounds.
On behalf of the U.S. government and K.I.S.S TV classes, we would like to once again thank you for participating in the first School Board Candidate Forum. Just a reminder that this forum will be available for viewing on the K.I.S.S TV YouTube channel. A Spanish version of the forum will also be available on the K.I.S.S TV YouTube channel as early as this weekend. Good luck to all candidates this election season. This does conclude our candidate forum.